Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This guy over here in this stone little box, his name is Tim, and this is The Second Legacy. And thank you for stopping by. Today, we've got a mixed match of ideas. We've got a little Jim Jordan first round action. Then we're going to follow some Alec Baldwin updates. And then we got to talk about the SCOTUS and what is going on with this whole frames and receivers thing. You guys are going to love this show. Everything will be linked in the description box below. And please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. All right, Tim, listen, we got a lot of stuff to talk about this morning.
Yeah.
We got the second vote today. How are you doing, man? How's life?
I'm doing better than Jim Jordan, I think.
Oh, it's too soon. We're only on round one. We're only on, well, as of the filming of this video, we're on round one. When it's released, we'll be at round two. Plus, I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know where this is going to end. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, why don't we start off with that? 'Cause
Okay.
I think that's kind of top of the mind kind of stuff, right?
Sure.
So before we even get into the ballot counts and all of those pieces and your take on it, your thoughts on it, where honestly, man, Jim Jordan's probably, and this is, you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, but Jim Jordan's probably on record the strongest Pro 2A speaker we've had in many years, maybe decades, at least candidate. What are your thoughts on that?
Say candidate. He's not speaker yet. We don't know if he's going to make that one or not, but yeah, he certainly would be. People are out there talking a lot of trash. I mean, that's to be expected in politics, but they're saying his entire tenure in Congress, he's never gotten one of his bills passed. He's never accomplished anything. It's like, well, that's funny because we had a community organizer be president for 2 terms. So
right.
I don't know that
doesn't really matter.
Right. I tend to favor politicians that don't pass a bunch of laws. Right. It's right. I had that epiphany I had that epiphany when I was a young man and I was at my then senator's office in DC and I looked at his wall. I was with my mom. We were doing like a little family vacation thing. And on the wall, I had all these plaques. And every single plaque was a bill that he had sponsored or co-sponsored that they had passed. And I had an entire wall of them. And I looked at my mom and I said, you know what? I'd be more impressed with a wall full of plaques showing every law or bill they had undone versus how many they had passed.
That's true.
And that's kind of how I don't put much stock in that criticism of Jordan. In our previous stream, I was talking a little bit about him and I wasn't really sure. I tend not to trust politicians, but of those that have been proposed, I definitely think he would be the best choice. He's certainly more conservative than McCarthy, and he's certainly more conservative than most of the Republican caucus in D.C., which is why he's probably running into trouble. He's too conservative for them.
That's where it factors in.
Right.
That's exactly that's where we're going. Yep.
Right.
Well, so I did some clips on my show on my channel yesterday that were just a few of the times that Jordan went after things like red flag laws, went after the ATF, went after the assault weapons ban, Nancy Pelosi of 2022, HR 8, 1446. I mean, it's through the Biden administration specifically in the Judiciary Committee. He's been sparring with Jeremy Nadler. Not Jeremy. Gerald. Is it Jerry Nadler? There it is.
Yeah, Jerry Nadler. I just call him Nadler or Noodler, but yeah.
I call him the high-waisted fiend because he is a fiend and he's got a high waist.
No waist, yes. There's people with no neck. He has no waist. Yes.
He has no waist. I don't know how, but there's like something goes wrong halfway down where it just becomes one situation. But anyway, yeah. So he has been going after that for a while. Mm-hmm. And that's got some street cred. I mean, that does. I mean, like legitimately, the only other person that I can imagine who has argued as much, who has been in front of a camera as much fighting on the floor fighting would either be Chip Roy, Thomas Massey, or Andrew Clyde. Those are really the only ones I can think of that would be that. I mean, sure, MTG and Lauren Boebert mouth off about it, but not at a consistent level to where they are consistently providing.
It's hard to take them seriously at times. It really is.
Well, I mean, there are politicians.
I know. I mean, it's hard to take many politicians seriously at times. But yeah, I do think that, Thomas Massey got behind Jordan. And that definitely said something to me again, because I have a lot of respect for Thomas Massey. I know he thinks a lot like we do. And if he'll support him, because Thomas Massey is the type of guy that strikes me as he's not really somebody that can be corrupted by politics. He is very opinionated. Yeah. I mean, he's one of the few in DC. Yeah. That stands by his convictions and lives by them. So yeah. So when that happened, I kind of warmed up to Jordan a little bit because I just don't know. It's so easy to say, well, Jim Jordan, has been this great guy on camera and boy, I just support him. But when it really comes down to supporting somebody, what do you truly know about them? right?
Yeah, no,
So many times we've thought somebody's going to be a great leader, and we get them in there, and But
yeah, to be fair, we never said McCarthy was going to be a good one.
No,
just for the record, we never had that conversation.
Look, any conservative from California is probably going to be an Arnold Schwarzenegger type conservative, which is not a conservative at all. I mean, he's left of neocon, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger is anyway.
That's true. Well, I think it's such an interesting thing because I think you just hit on something at the very end, at the beginning of that, where you said that's probably why he's running into trouble is because he's too conservative for the conservative party.
Right.
It's so fascinating because he's not that far extreme conservative.
He's not.
That would kind of lead you to the point that you'd say, well, wait a minute, if you're calling him too extreme on the conservative side and you're a Republican, that would mean you're a rhino, right?
Neocon, yes, a liberal Republican.
Yeah, because you'd be like Democrat light. So you're the face of Democrat light. Okay, well, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. But let's continue here because there's some other things that were really important. So, number one, Mr. Producer, Jim Jordan fails to win his House speakership. This is the first ballot, again, reinforcing this is the first one. So this happened yesterday, and they only had one round of voting. Some of the things, there's two or three real big takeaways that I'd want to discuss really quickly. One, Steve Scalise, who was one of the runners for the House speakership, he withdrew and he voted for Jordan. McCarthy, who got ousted, voted for Jordan. Chip Roy voted for Jordan. Andrew Clyde voted for Jordan. Thomas Massey voted for Jordan.
Yep.
All of those things are indicative. So I think there was a tiny element of a protest vote. That's my own opinion. I think the way it went down.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we saw 3 or 4 people vote for McCarthy, and that's just a big middle finger, right? Because he hasn't even really thrown his hat in the ring. He like you said, he backed Jordan. So and he said, to his credit, he said, look, let's elect Jordan and move forward, right?
Yep.
So he, maybe privately he's harboring some sour grapes, but at least publicly he's not. So I have to give credit to McCarthy for that.
100% agree. Yep. That's a great thing to say. McCarthy, for his politics, he is not digging in his heels, and it does look like he's trying to move forward for the betterment of the institution that he sees important.
That's absolutely true.
I said it that way. I didn't say it any other way.
For the betterment of the Republican Party. Yes, right.
Nope. For the betterment of the institution as he sees fit. Exactly. Well, I don't think it'd be a good show, Tim, if I didn't just run through real quickly a high-level vote of the 20 votes against
Let's see
Jordan.
Who did what, yes.
Yep. So this is number 2, Mr. Producer. These are the 20 Republicans who voted against Jim Jordan for Speaker, and I'm going to go to number 3 and just run through this real quick. So I'm going to leave them on the screen. You guys can check if these are people in your district. But what I want to focus on here, and this is, I think, interesting, Tim, you've got the people who were mentioned were Kevin McCarthy, Lee Zeldin of New York, which I thought was interesting, Steve Scalise, and there's 1 or 2 one-offs like Mike Garcia. But a majority of these votes were for people like McCarthy. There was Scalise in there, the number 4. Then you've got Zeldin again. So really it was 3 main people, Scalise, McCarthy, and Zeldin. All of them don't have a chance. Like Zeldin, he's a not a wannabe. He was a candidate who was trying to become a governor of New York. I mean, like he lost. So that one didn't happen. And then number 5, you got more of the exact same stuff. Scalise, McCarthy, 1 vote for Thomas Massey, and then some random ones in here. 2 different Toms.
And ironically, Thomas Massey wasn't the one who voted for Thomas Massey. He voted for Jordan.
Exactly. So when you're looking at all this, and if you guys saw your your representative in there, you do have the ability to call them and tell them what you think either way.
Yes.
And I would encourage it. But I think it's so fascinating that, again, to what you were just saying, you've got Scalise, McCarthy, and then a mixed mash of random votes for random people. Those are all middle fingers. That's what that
Those
is.
Those are protest votes, as you called it. Yes.
Yeah. They're all middle fingers. Like, I don't like the way this went down, and I'm cranky pants, and I'm not going to do what you want. Now, do you think that do you think McCarthy and Scalise actually voting for Jordan will sway any voters before we move on to our next raging topic?
Yeah, I think eventually they will. I mean, if they're firmly behind Jordan, they'll reach out to the people that are voting for them and say, hey guys, come on, let's get together. We got to get this done because we're going into an election year and we're making ourselves look pretty bad right now. So
yes, that is true. That is true.
It always seems like whenever you just absolutely have to move forward and things have to be done right, and you really need that forward movement. Inevitably, politicians screw it up.
They always find a way. They'll always find a way.
Some quagmire, and they can't seem to get forward momentum, and then they get fractured, and then they start fighting. And
you don't like that?
It's all part of the process, but it's just so funny to watch because everybody talks about the unity of the Democrats. Well, yeah, that's how Marxists work. They get behind their leader and go forward. Free thinking.
It's
free
so
people
simple.
Like to argue a little bit. We don't just get in line.
Yeah, it's so weird. North Carolina is so unified. Oh, it's so weird. So odd. Well, so how many? Okay, so now here's the question: how many votes do you think it's going to take if Jim Jordan gets it? What's your guess on votes?
I'm going to say less than 10.
Less than 10. Wow, blanket statement. You are such a fence sitter. Okay, I'm going with 4. I feel it. Right, I don't know why.
So if
4.
Yeah,
Price is Right.
You got to get as close as possible without going over. So
this is freaking Price is Right on me. Oh, whatever. I'm moving past.
That's what I totally did was Price is Right to you. That's exactly what I priced right. All I need is some crazy hat, and then
So, crazy hat and a shirt that says "Pick me, Bob."
Right.
That's for all of you guys that are 35 and older. All right, so now let's bounce over. Let's jump into Alec Baldwin because there's an update, Tim.
Yes,
there's an update. I think this one is fascinating. We've been covering this since it went down, but it's official now. Prosecutors are seeking to recharge actor Alec Baldwin in fatal shooting on the movie set of Rust. Now, right off the gate, that's not really new information, but what's new information is what they're doing right now. This came out yesterday. Number 7, Mr. Producer. Special prosecutors are seeking to recharge actor Alec Baldwin in the fatal shooting of the cinematographer on a set of Western movie, describing Tuesday their preparations to present new information to a grand jury. So they're taking him to a grand jury.
Well, yeah.
Isn't that it? It's just, for me, we talked about this pre-filming. This is such an interesting occurrence because obviously the irony in the room is Alec Baldwin is a massive gun controller.
Right.
Making money off of the very things that he says shouldn't exist in the world.
Right. And I'm paraphrasing, but he tweeted something several years ago asking somebody, how does it feel to have killed somebody? And it's like, ooh, right. That didn't age well there, Alec, did it? Yeah.
Right. You're like, ugh. Yeah, that's not cute. It's not a good look.
No. But then that guy is a hot mess anyway, punching reporters, and he just looks perpetually mad at the world.
Well, now he's got a few reasons. Now he's got a heck of a reason. But listen to this. Though. I think this is the interesting part on number 8, Mr. Producer. After extensive investigation over the past several months, extensive, Tim, additional facts have come to light that we believe that show Mr. Baldwin has criminal culpability in the death of Halna Hutchins and the shooting of Joel Souza. We believe the appropriate course of action is to permit a panel of New Mexico citizens to determine from here whether Mr. Baldwin should be held over for criminal trial. And we hit on this because what's spurring this is a new piece of information that came from a third-party analysis that basically said, hey, the gun can't fire unless you pull the trigger.
Right.
That's what they're building that off of.
And here's a question I have with regards to that decision. So the FBI got their hands on the gun first to do the testing. Mm-hmm. They broke the gun. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now keep in mind, when you break a single action revolver, you can cause it potentially to fire without the trigger being pulled when you break a component within the lockwork. So
correct.
Then they go in and they replace these components and resume their testing. Well, how do we know that the gun wasn't damaged before the shooting occurred? How do we know what the FBI broke and how it would have affected the function of the gun now that we've replaced parts? So it just seems to me that the investigation of this has been mishandled. The FBI once again fat-fingered something. And I don't even know how the gun can be used as evidence at this point now that the FBI has broken it. So, yeah. Unless they dropped it and knocked the front sight off, and it would be totally irrelevant to the function of the gun. But I'm assuming when they say they broke the gun, they broke something internally. So
I think if memory serves, and this is just from memory, I think they broke the actual hammer when they were trying to,
like the sear on the hammer, which would hold the hammer to the back. So if it was damaged, the hammer would fall.
I think it was the internal mechanisms of the hammer. I think that's what they damaged when they were taking it apart and trying to get it to do whatever they were trying to get it to do. Yeah. I think so. That's just rough memory, though. So now there's 2 more things here. First, I want to show the people of Second Legacy on number 9, Mr. Producer. And then I'm going to show something that I found curious, Tim. And honestly, I don't know what to do. But let's go with the first one. So this is the part I was just telling you guys for the background and the history of what happened here. The analysis led by Lucien Hag of Forensic Science Services in Arizona stated that although Baldwin repeatedly denies pulling the trigger, given the test findings and observations reported here, the trigger had to be pulled or depressed sufficiently to release the fully cocked or retracted hammer of the evidence revolver, so locked in position in the back. There's the FBI reference of what you're talking about. An earlier FBI report on the agency's analysis of the gun found that, as common with firearms of that design, it could go off without pulling the trigger if force was applied to an uncocked hammer, such as by dropping the weapon. So what they're saying there, I mean, Tim, you've played with this stuff a ton.
Yeah, I've talked about
hammer
this.
Is completely set forward. You hit the back, it hits the primer, and then there's nothing to block it, and it goes off.
Yes. I mean, a lot of the more modern replicas of single-action armies have internal safeties that would keep the hammer from contacting the primer if the trigger is not pulled. Think of a transfer safety bar like on a Ruger-type series of revolvers. And so this gun apparently is a replica of an original 1873, which does not have that included safety. Apparently, I don't know. So
it's totally possible.
But yeah, and this is why the Cowboys only loaded 5 rounds into a cylinder versus 6, so that hammer would not rest on a primer, because if you hit it hard enough, it has direct contact with that primer, cause the firearm discharge if dropped or struck from the rear sharply, which is not what he did. So
no, exactly. And that's where this gets so fascinating, because the next sentence here, the only way the testers could get it to fire was by striking the gun with a mallet while the hammer was down and resting on the cartridge, speaking to your point, or by pulling the trigger when it was fully cocked, and then the gun broke during testing. So they had to hit it with a hammer in order for that to spark off. Now, I didn't see a hammer in his hand. This is where it kind of gets really, really vague. But this part, Tim, and people of the Second Legacy, please let me know in the comments field what you think about this, because I've never heard this before. And Tim, this kind of caught you off guard too when we ran through it. This is just fascinating. People, what do you think about this in the comments? The filming of Rust resumed this year in Montana under an agreement with the cinematographer's widower, Matthew Hutchins, that made him an executive producer.
Period.
Did that?
No additional info.
Period.
Yeah.
Nothing else. And that struck me as exceedingly odd. Now, I was not, here's our caveats. I wasn't there. Me and Tim weren't there. We have no idea what happened with this. But just that sentence alone, Tim.
Yeah. I mean, it can mean anything.
A little
so
odd.
What if he had this stipulation, like, if you're going to move forward with this, then I want to be in an executive position to make sure I have some control over, the safety on set and things like that. Maybe that's what this is. Or is it about money? We don't know, but it's an odd statement to include in the article without clarification, because it looks really bad.
It does. It's like, excuse me, what now?
Yeah.
Like, okay, that, okay. Anyway, moving on.
Next.
So you guys let us know what you think in the comments on that one. And Tim,
yes,
this last one, we have a SCOTUS soup du jour. We had another one come down from the SCOTUS. They say, no, there is actually a danger. The ATF has a point. The danger, the irreparable harm, the insanity of frames and receivers and ghost guns, as they call them. It must be halted until we find out that it's unconstitutional or not. So it's unconstitutional. It's got to be unconstitutionally enforced until we find out it's not unconstitutional. Yeah. There's no restitution for if it's unconstitutional and you've been doing this to me the whole time.
The damage done to citizens and businesses.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what's the restitution look like there? Because I'm not really following, because that's the second time they've done this. Because Alito did this earlier this year too.
Yeah, and this drives me nuts, because throughout American history, we've been able to make our own firearms. And, the whole ATF rules and the, Gun Control Act 1968, starting with, 1934 in the NFA and the 1968 Gun Control Act established FFL dealers and all this other stuff. We've still been able to manufacture our own firearms this entire time in our American history. And now the Supreme Court's going to tell us that, whoa. We know there's hundreds of thousands or millions of these things out there, but we really got to stop this now for safety reasons until this is settled in court. Makes no sense. In the meantime, you're doing irreparable harm to citizens who have, problems with getting things that they want. And of course, then businesses that are going to suffer financially because of this. So this is why when people say, well, what do you think the Supreme Court's going to do? And I say, I don't know.
No idea.
Just don't know what goes through their heads, because many times we'll get a Bruin decision and other times we'll get decisions like this, which make no sense. And so, you can't have blind faith in these courts, but the courts aren't like representatives. You don't get to call them up and tell them what your opinion is. They take it into consideration because they don't care what you think. They're going by the law as they see it. So
Correct. And it's so interesting, and I'm going to show you guys a few more things, like 2 more clips here. But Tim, something you and I talked about off camera before was it's such an interesting perspective to see the government, and by government I mean the ATF, the lawyers for the DOJ, those people, to watch them argue things in court versus what they've argued before court. Like, for example, they come out and they say, we're going to ban ghost guns for XYZ reason. Or in another case that we've talked about before, we're going to put out the Obamacare. It's not a tax. It's not. It's perfectly fine. You get a lawsuit that says it's a tax because there's an implied penalty if you don't take advantage of it. And then they come in and they go, yeah, but Your Honor, that was a tax. It's perfectly fine. The legislature can pass a tax. It's perfectly fine. It boggles my mind how they get away with it.
I know. Well, even when the Supreme Court tells them how to fix their case is another thing that drives me nuts. And that happened with the Obamacare. It's like, well, the way this is worded looks an awful lot like a tax. Oh,
It is. Oh, I mean, yes, Your Honor, it is. Yes, you're right. It is a tax. That was our next line.
Yeah, it's just, you just, like you said, you can't trust the courts because you have no idea what's motivating their decisions and what their thought process is. So, yeah. I mean, we have a typically favorable court right now, but don't bank on favorable decisions.
Oh, there's no bank coming. Oh, there's no bank. But let me show you a few of the things they said in this article. And again, there's some key things that I think are interesting. Mr. Producer, this is 12. Washington, CNN. The Supreme Court on Monday allowed the Biden administration to continue regulating so-called ghost guns. The court's brief order grants the Justice Department's request to wipe away a lower court order and allow the regulations to remain in effect while a legal challenge brought by firearm manufacturers continues to play out in the lower courts. This piece, there were no noted dissents to the order. None?
None.
No one? No one was like, hey, question mark, nah?
Yeah.
No? Okay. So we have, it's a 6-3 conservative court. Not one dissent, huh?
Makes very little sense. You have to wonder what they're doing here. Are they playing politics? Shouldn't have that in the courts. What are they doing?
No idea.
Yeah,
I have no idea. It just
now is it? I get these confused. Is it the Brace case, one of the Brace cases, or is it the frames and receiver rule that the court has said, the lower court has said you have very little chance of winning this, so I'm putting an injunction in place. Was it this one or the
no, it was both. No,
they
it
did
was
on both.
The
okay. I thought I was remembering it in this case, and I thought I remembered it in the Brace case, and it's good that it's both because I'm like, I can't remember which one it was. Circuit. Is it both? And
No.
So here we have
Circuit.
Yeah, so we have a very strong opinion from the lower court, and the SCOTUS gets it. Like, we're going to go ahead and throw that one out.
We're gonna ease that one down because after all, there is a danger to society. Okay.
Anyway. How are you going to undo the last 250 years? Oh, yeah, by the way, turn them all in, folks. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we fixed it.
Yeah, we fixed it. Problem solved. Yeah.
Problem solved. What else can we talk about? So here's number 13, Mr. Producer. And so this is the last piece that I thought was interesting, and then we'll wrap this bad boy. In an unusually sharp filing, Prelagar told the justices in an emergency application, by the way, that is the Solicitor General for the government, emergency application that the district court and the Fifth Circuit, quote, have effectively countermanded this court's authoritative determination about the status quo that should prevail during appellate proceedings in this case. Fancy talk for, they're not listening to you, that's mean. And then this last part, the court, quote, should not tolerate that affront, she wrote. Again, Solicitor General for the ATF or the DOJ telling the SCOTUS that you shouldn't tolerate them not listening to you. And everyone in the room is going, really? Should we not?
Excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting how you're taking that approach and that tack when a lot of what you do is kind of an affront to our rights. But it's okay. The pride of the court, though, Tim. The pride of the court.
Well, maybe that worked. The appealing to the court's ego.
Insane. It's just insane. That's an affront, Your Honor. And SCOTUS, we can't have this.
Yes.
Well, what would it be?
You must treat
us in the streets.
Thus for
it's just insane. Meanwhile, we've got New York, New Jersey, California, Illinois, Oregon, all passing sensitive places. A direct affront to the Bruin decision.
Yep.
Nothing. No similarities there.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just argue that in court. That's what our guys should do. They should go, Dear SCOTUS, this is how it should be too. Dear SCOTUS, this is an affront to your Bruin decision. It is an insult to your ego. They don't listen to you. It is rude. What you gonna do about it?
Put him in prison, under the prison. Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate that we see politics playing out in the court system where it shouldn't play out, but that just kind of is where we are, I suppose. But anyway, we look forward to your comments down below, folks. Let us know what you think about the Alec Baldwin thing, about the whole executive producer thing. What are your thoughts on that? We look forward to reading those comments, right? All right, folks. Thanks for watching Second Legacy, and we'll talk to you guys soon.